Today we're ranking and rating the 10 strongest operators in Year 9 Season 3. Whether you're on console or PC, these are the best operators to pick if you want to win more. Each operator will be rated based on 5 different categories, which are difficulty, solo strength, team strength, counter ability, and pick rate. The difficulty, which will actually measure as easiness, is a score based on how easy the operator is to play. So if you're a beginner, this stat is one to keep your eye out for. Next is solo strength, which is how good the operator performs in a solo environment. This isn't measuring only solo queue strength, but rather the solo capabilities of the operator. For example, Thermite would have a low solo strength score because most of the time you're relying on other operators to help prepare the wall for breaching or cover a plant. However, Thermite would have a very high team strength, as his breaching in a team environment is very strong and can impact the round drastically. Then we have counter ability, which is how easy it is for the other team to counter this operator. An uncounterable operator will score highly here, but when an operator is this easy to counter, they're not going to be winning any awards. Lastly is the pick rate score, which is based on how often the operator is actually useful. The two big factors here are site selection and the opposing team's lineup. For example, Fuse isn't going to be a great pick on top floor bomb sites, so he'd rate pretty low here. Now let's get into the rankings from worst to best, starting with Montagne at number 10. If you want to take space quickly, safely, and effectively, then Monty is your guy. Monty is a fantastic counter to aggression, being a pillar of strength that adds pressure onto the defense. He's not super difficult, with your main priority being making space and adding pressure while your teammates clean up the mess. I've rated his easiness score at an 8.5 as he's a very simple operator to play. However, some players struggle to know when to drop the shield and go for kills. Because of his heavy reliance on teammates and poor efficiency as a solo player, his solo strength is only a 6.3 while his team strength stands at a 9.7. Feeding your team information while causing a massive distraction for them is where he shines, all while being difficult to kill and super menacing. Countering Montagne is hard, having to chip away at his health with impacts and C4s or praying that he messes up and gives you the chance to shoot him. For these reasons, he's going to be rated a 9.4 in counter ability. Add in a Finka to your lineup and this makes him all the more dangerous. Monty is good on most bomb sites and maps, but many times having 5 guns instead is the better option. His score for pick rate is 7.8, giving him a total rating of 8.26. At number 9 is Melusi. Melusi is a fantastic operator for fortifying the site and protecting every avenue of entry with lethal consequences. She's a place and go operator with a very easy recoil, making her a perfect beginner pick with an easiness score of 9.1. The placements of the wubs can be less than ideal at first, but once you figure out where to put them, that's it. You've mastered Melusi. Her solo efficiency is solid, having impacts for playmaking and tons of information around her. The MP5 only having a one-time sight and the slowness of being a 3 armor brings her overall strength down a bit with a solo strength of 8.5 and a team strength of 8.9. She's also fairly easy to counter, with the wubs having many different weaknesses. However, she has 4 of them, so it's difficult for the attackers to get them all. The main strength of these wubs comes from the area denial they provide, so even those inactive ones on the backside are giving you an advantage because you don't have to dedicate players to watching those areas. For counter ability, I'm giving Melusi a score of 6.8 because of the many weaknesses of the wubs and because Brava is a hard counter for her. That being said, Melusi is good on every single site in the game and is never a bad pick unless you're up against that Brava. Her pick rate score of 9.6 and lack of difficulty put her in 9th on this list with a total score of 8.58. Sliding into 8th place is Finka with a similar story. Because of her global ability that isn't site dependent, she can be picked literally every round and benefit the team. This gives her a pick rate score of 9.6, and like Melusi, she's also extremely easy to use with a difficulty score of 9.4. The hardest part about Finka is just controlling the recoil of the LMG, which really isn't too bad. The only reason she isn't higher is because her strength isn't dominating the scoreboard like some other operators on this list. Her solo strength is 8.2, being very efficient with the LMG and the grenades while providing extra health to herself and the rest of the team. Team-wise, her strength is lower at a 7.7 because she doesn't actually provide much help to the team outside of the small bonuses of the stim, which are extra effective with shields. There are many other operators that contribute massive team strength, and Finka's best assets are just fragging out. Because her ability is so simple, there aren't many counters to it. Legion Mines stop the adrenaline surge, but the rest of the team will still have it. Smoke works as well, but not to a great effect. If you kill Finka, she obviously can't use a sim, but that's the case for most people, and also shooting one extra bullet at the attacker is effective enough to kill them still. For those reasons, she scores a 9.2 in counter ability for a total score of 8.82. Tubarao is our defender at number 7, being an extremely strong addition to the Rainbow Six roster with one of the most lethal weapons, an ACOG scope, and freeze canisters with massive potential. Is it Tubarao or Tubarao? Either way, he's simple to play, freezing off walls or teammates depending on the situation. You do need a bit of a brain to play him, making his easiness score an 8.3. Like I mentioned though, his strength is what puts him on this list with a solo strength of 9.4 and his team strength even higher at 9.8. In combination with Bandit or Arcade, walls will stay closed if used correctly, and the ability to stall time similar to smoke canisters allows him to swiftly isolate gunfights and perform exceptionally. His individual strength comes from his massive playmaking ability to stall time and frag out. To counter Tubarao, well, it's very difficult unless you're a complete ninja with Twitch drones or find a way to distract him while opening the breach. That's why his score for counter ability is a 9.5. Tubarao's biggest downfall is his pick rate, with a score of 7.6, and this is because there's a lot of sites where hard breaching is either not important or not the primary objective. He's at his best when there's a breach to maintain, but without that, he falls a little short. Total score for Tubarao is 8.92. See how I did that there? I just switched up his name a couple times in there, yeah. Gotcha. Number 6 is Ying-a-ling Ding Dong. What is going on? More commonly known as Ying, I guess. Ying is very lethal in the current meta, with an abundance of utility between 4 Candelas and 2 smoke grenades. Warden picks are at an all-time low, meaning she's being countered less and less. She's not the most intuitive operator to use, having to plan out what you want to do beforehand. Many players also fail to push off of her utility, making her a lot less useful. She scores a 7.8 in the difficulty department for those reasons. She is, however, one of the strongest attackers right now, especially for solo plays. Not many other operators compare to her in terms of solo strength at a wicked 9.7. Being able to clear out rooms with 1 Candela, execute bomb sites entirely on your own, or lay down an LMG to clear angles are all fantastic assets that she has. Bring her in a team environment and she's only stronger with a 9.8 team strength rating. Whether it's planting the bomb, causing a distraction, suppressing fire, or just blinding literally everyone, she's extremely strong and very underrated in my opinion. But if you're going to bring Ying, prepare yourself for the Warden pick the next round because many people will try to counter her. Warden is a hard counter, but that also requires him being 1, alive, and 2, in the right position to actually counter her ability. Many times, even with a Warden on the defending team, a Ying push will still be successful for one of the 2 reasons that I just mentioned. Random C4 tosses can also be her crux, but I've still given her a solid counter ability score of 8.8, with most of her downfalls coming from individual mistakes from the person playing her. She's good on basically every site in the game, and her copious utility gives her playmaking potential on a large scale. That gives her a pick rate score of 8.9 for a total score of 9.0. Now it's time to break into the top 5 operators of Year 9 Season 3, with number 5 going to Fenrir. Fenrir has been a powerhouse ever since his release, giving players the ability for literal free kills thanks to the blinding effects of his mines. For solo queue, he's got tons of information for himself while having the bailiff for site setup and playmaking. His solo strength score is an excellent 9.6. His team strength yields the same result, a very strong information base with killer playmaking effects of the mines and teammates to utilize them as well. He's one of the most viable operators in the game, being useful on every single site because of his versatility in the placements of the mines and his dominant strength. For team strength, I've given him a 9.5, and for pick rate, an almost perfect 9.9. Fenrir's weaknesses, if you even want to call them that, come from his difficulty and his counter ability. He is a more difficult operator to master, having an endless amount of choices for where to place the mines, when to activate them, and when to switch them. I've still given him a good difficulty score of 8.2, as the basics of his gameplay are easy on newer players, and he's still really strong just being played like that. Countering him is fairly easy with Twitch and Brava, that is, if you can find where the mines are actually hidden. IQ can help with this, but now you've invested a lot of resources in dedication to countering one single operator. Those sneaky mines and the fact that he has 4 of them land Fenrir a counter ability score of 8.5, giving him a total score of 9.14. Our first attacker in the top 5 is Ace. Ace is an extremely simple yet powerful operator with many different tricks to level up his strength. With the strongest gun in the game on top of it, he's coming in hot with a difficulty score of 9.8. His solo strength is also extremely high at 9.4, being able to deploy the Selmas extremely quickly and safely without relying on teammates to cover him. He can also hold his own hop-outs with claymores and use the Selmas for sound cover on pushes. I got you, man, don't worry.
You might come nice box.
I got the claymore.
No.
The thing about Ace is you don't need to get main breaches with him to be useful, because he can deploy the Selmas at range and on many things outside of reinforced walls. With that being said, if you can get main breaches thanks to teammates clearing wall denial, he's even better. He's also great for locking down angles thanks to the AK-12 and is an ideal pick in a 5-stack, putting his team strength at 9.5. Countering Ace is more difficult than other hard breachers because his Selma deploy the fastest and the safest, however a good bandit or K-trick and you could end up in a more difficult situation. His counter ability score lands at an 8.3 for these reasons. Ace is the optimal hard breach with the most flexibility of them all. He's great on every map and against most defending lineups, giving him a pick rate score of 9.3. That gives Ace an overall score of 9.26. On to the next. Our second best defender in Year 9 Season 3 is Azami. Despite multiple nerfs, her Kibas are still extremely powerful, and with a lethal loadout to back it up, it's hard to place her anywhere lower on this list. With 5 Kibas over the course of the round, even shooting them is not a safe option, as it leaves you vulnerable to being swung, or Azami will just throw another one up after it breaks. Because she has so many Kibas, you need a ton of explosives to destroy them all. Not to mention, you might need other utility to burn ADSs, Wamidus, or Aruni gates beforehand. All this makes her extremely annoying to deal with, and most attackers will elect to just push somewhere else or pay the consequences. Because of this team stacking capability, her team strength is 9.9, and her near impossible counterplay gives her a counter ability score of 9.8. She's not the easiest operator to master though. You'll need to learn where the best placements are and adjust how the Kibas pop out in order to get those lethal angles. Her on the fly play makes her difficult as well, but the simplistic design means you can find success with Azami very early on. There's constant room for improvement with her, landing a difficulty score of 8.4. As a solo operator, Azami is very efficient at locking down specific areas or even using Kibas during engagements to make massive plays. However, she sometimes lacks information when relying on her own assets. For that reason, her solo strength is not quite as great as her team strength, coming in at 8.7. She is good on every site in the game and against almost every lineup though. A very heavy explosive lineup from the attack might mean other operators are a better option, which is why her pick rate score is a near perfect 9.8. Overall, Azami scores a slightly higher score than Ace with a 9.32. Our number 2 spot goes to the best attacker in the game right now, and that is none other than Dokkaebi. Despite Ubisoft's nerf attempts on her this season, she's still the best attacker in the game between 2 easy to use calls and the most broken bonus ability of hacking the defender cameras. She's so simple to use, with the only skill needed being survival, which applies to almost every operator, and timing of the calls, which is made even easier now that you have to wait on them. Difficulty score of 9.7 for the Doke. Dokkaebi is also an extremely effective solo operator, being able to clear rooms by utilizing both her calls and flashbangs simultaneously. Put her in a team and it's even more lethal, with roamers or late round defenders getting completely sold out by her phone calls. I've rated her solo strength at 9.4 and her team strength at 9.7. What about her counters though? Mute is by far the best counter, with mute jammers turning off defender phones as soon as they enter its radius. However, most roamers won't have a jammer to protect them, meaning the calls will still be useful against them. Tubarao can also counter Dokkaebi by freezing himself or other defenders, but it's pretty niche and you won't run into this problem very frequently, if at all. Besides that, there isn't really much to counter Dokkaebi, especially once she accesses the defender cameras, giving her a solid counter ability score of 8.6. Pick rate wise, she's almost always going to be good with a score of 9.5. Sometimes dropping that DMR for an LMG or an AR might be more useful depending on the circumstances, or if mute is constantly in play, then a different attacking pick might be a better option. This gives Dokkaebi a dominant 9.38 overall rating. And before I reveal the number 1 operator in Year 9 Season 3, if there's any other operators you want to know about, put them down below in the comments asking me to rank them, and I'll let you know how they perform in each category. That way, if your favorite operator or main operator wasn't in this video, you can know how well they'll perform in Year 9 Season 3. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more big brain professional R6 Yapper knowledge. Anyways, it's time for the big reveal. The best operator in Year 9 Season 3 is Mute. Mute is the most dominant operator in the game right now, and he's still somehow underrated. He counters nearly half the attacking lineup single-handedly, and on top of it, he counters the drones and electronics of every single attacker as well. His shotgun is one of the deadliest in the game, and he has the best secondary utility on top of it, the C4. The ideal playstyle with Mute requires patience and is quite different from other operators. Learning how to play Mute the right way can take some time, but even as a beginner, simply placing the jammers is enough to achieve a great deal of success. I've ranked his difficulty at 8.8 for these reasons, but once you talk about his strength, the ratings go off the charts. His solo strength is a 9.5, being able to cut off so much information and be the ideal candidate for clutch plays. Mute's loadout gives him the power to make massive plays, which is necessary when talking about solo strength. However, in a team environment, his usefulness skyrockets to a perfect 10. Mute's team strength could not get any better, with each Mute jammer being a safe haven from Dokkaebi calls, lion scans, blitz shields, and most importantly, drones.
Guys, they don't know I'm here.
In office, he's on the hatch, opening the hatch.
He's dead.
On your 90 pucks, on double door, walking in.
To counter Mute, you can throw an EMP to temporarily disable it, or maybe shoot it, or try and twitch drone it. However, the latter two options have their risks and downsides. You might just get a shotgun to the chest while trying to turn the corner to shoot that jammer, or that twitch drone might just get muted before you have the chance. EMPs can be valid, but you really want to waste an EMP just to drone past a doorway? Thatcher's banned most of the time anyway, plus you need to already know where the jammer is in order to EMP it. It's a bit of a tricky situation, and most of that risk just isn't worth it. That's why I've given Mute a counter ability score of 9.8. Now, if you're placing Mute jammers on reinforcements, please stop. Please don't do that anymore. Stop. He's not the #1 operator in the game if you're using all the jammers on reinforcements, I promise you. Bandit and Cade are both much better for that, so just pick them instead if you want to be a wall denial. For pick rate, he's still very efficient, with some sites being less than ideal for jammer placements or longer range maps where his loadout isn't as effective. I've given Mute a pick rate score of 9.2 for an overall score of 9.46 for our top dog. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my rankings or not. Good luck out there in the new season, and we'll see you on the next one.